Hi everybody, welcome to my podcast on meiosis or meiotic cell division. Meiosis is a special type of cell division, and it only occurs in the production of gametes. But before we get into meiosis, I just want to review mitosis or mitotic cell division, which we learned earlier in the year. So mitosis, if you remember, is a form of asexual reproduction. Asexual meaning that there's only one parent required. And during mitosis, usually we're referring to a type of reproduction in cells, and we start off with a parent cell and we wind up with two daughter cells that are genetically the same. Meiosis, it only occurs when we're producing gametes, which are sex cells, sperm for males, and eggs for females. Both of these happen in specialized areas. For sperm is produced in the male gonad called the testes, and the eggs are produced in the female gonad called the ovary. Males can produce sperm from puberty until death, and eggs for females are born with a set number of eggs and goes from puberty to menopause, depending. So let's take a look. Let's review mitotic. So mitotic, like we said, asexual reproduction, two daughter cells that are genetically the same. Remember the phases, right? We spoke about interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. So in prophase, you have the genetic materials making a copy of itself. The nucleus starts to disintegrate. Metaphase, the genetic material moves towards the equator or the center of the cell. Anaphase, the sister chromatids or the copies separate and migrate to opposite sides of the cell. And in telophase, cytokinesis occurs where the cell splits in half and the nuclear envelope develops around both sets of DNA. So we wind up eventually with two daughter cells that have the same exact DNA in each nucleus. So if you need to review that, if you feel you need to review that before we get into meiosis, just look back in your notes. You can stop this and come back to it later, or we could just continue. So right now I'm going to go to meiosis. So meiosis, sexual reproduction. Okay, so we need two parents. All right, it produces haploid cells or haploid gametes, and it occurs in the gonads, like we said before. So here's this term, haploid. What does that mean? Well, mitosis is producing diploid cells, and diploid is represented by 2N. Meiosis is producing haploid cells, which is represented by N. So basically, mitotic cell division, I'm sorry, not mitotic cell division, diploid cells have the complete set of DNA for a particular species, and the haploid cells contain half. So if we look at humans, right, humans have 46 chromosomes, and that's the diploid number, so it's represented by 2N. So if you wanted to find out what the haploid number is, you just solve this equation for N. So if you do this, the haploid number for humans is 23. And that's how many chromosomes would be in the sperm or the egg. And that's important because when the sperm fertilizes the egg, the DNA, the chromosomes from the sperm are going to combine with the chromosomes of the egg to bring the chromosome number to diploid, or 46 again. So let's take a look at how this happens, or what occurs here. Okay, so if let's take a look at an individual, an organism. if the diploid number, let's just try to keep it simple, is 2. Okay, so what that means is that if they have 2 chromosomes, we'll do blue and red here. So they have a copy. They have 2 copies of the same chromosome. So both of these chromosomes contain the same genetic information. The blue one, we could say, came from this organism's father, and the red one came from this organism's mother. So what's going to happen here is these 2 chromosomes are going to make a copy. So this one will become copy, it will duplicate, and then this one will duplicate. And these are called now, this is a sister chromatid, these are sister chromosomes, and that's a sister chromosome. So what will happen is, and this is happening inside the cell, so now we have 4 chromosomes in here, and what will happen is these will come close together, and it'll form a tetrad, and it'll look something like this now. Okay, when they're close like this, when they're combined, it's called a tetrad. So a tetrad is made up of 4 chromatids. Then what's going to happen is it's going to divide. So we're going to wind up with something that might look like this. So what happened here? Making it a little complicated. But now we started off here, and then we had a division, and now we have, so I guess I could do this here, so now we have 2 cells. Okay, and they have, what happened to the genetic information here? It's no longer solid blue and red. Genetic information switched. The way how this happens is, if we were to take a look at this, we have something that's called crossing over, where the chromosomes are going to wrap around each other, and when they're pulled apart and when it divides, the genetic information where they cross over each other switch. So now this chromatid has genetic information from this organism's mother and father on one chromatid. Okay, instead of just having its father's genetic information on one chromatid, now it has a combination of its mother's and father's genetic information on one chromatid. And then what's going to happen is it's going to divide again, and we'll wind up with 4 cells with 1. So this one will go into here, this chromatid will go into here, that chromatid will go into this cell, and that chromatid will go into that cell. So instead of like in mitosis, where we started off with a diploid cell and we wound up with 2 daughter cells, each diploid, we start off with a diploid cell, and look at this, we wind up with 4 cells that are haploid. And if we look at each chromatid, the genetic information in each one is totally different. All right, and why did that happen? Because of crossing over. Okay, so we're going to go over this again in class, but what I want you to look at or look into is, how is meiosis in the egg meiosis different from the sperm? and we call it spermatogenesis. All right, so how is spermatogenesis and oogenesis different from each other? The process is the same as far as the the crossing over and winding up with 4 haploid cells, but the end is a little different. I want you to take a look at that for class. Okay, so thank you, and see you tomorrow.